Kwaba, welcome to this week's edition of Ghana in Focus. Myself, Kwame, Ghanaian broadcaster, writer, journalist, podcaster, and entrepreneur. And in this week's edition of Ghana in Focus is a special Nkrumah Never Dies, celebrating Kwame Nkrumah Memorial Day, which is on Saturday coming, 21st of September, marking the 115th anniversary of the birth of the great man, Asajafo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, the first president of Ghana. So we'll be talking about why Nkrumah never dies, and that is the theme for this week's edition of Ghana in Focus. So let you know that if you like what you hear, please share to your friends, family, social media networks. Please subscribe to Ghana Africa in Focus on YouTube. And we want to get as many subscribers by the end of the year. So please subscribe on YouTube to Ghana Africa in Focus. Hit the notification bell, meaning that every time I upload new content, YouTube will notify of that to yourself. Again, Ghana Africa in Focus is available on Spotify. We are trying to get 800 followers by the end of the year. We've got 530 subscribers on or followers on Spotify. So thank you very much to all those who have subscribed to Ghana Africa in Focus on Spotify. Again, if you want to subscribe to Ghana Africa in Focus on Spotify, look out for Ghana Africa in Focus on Spotify and click the follow button, meaning that Spotify will notify you every time I upload a new podcast. All right, and if you want to do any business in Ghana, you buy land, buy property, you want to start a business, we can tailor make a package for you. We do have a consulting session that we do. We do a half-hour briefing for $20 for that half an hour, or we do an hour full consultation, and that's for $30 US, whereby we sit down with you and discuss what your aims and objectives are of wanting to relocate or do business in Ghana. Okay, so if you want to book your session with ourselves, we've got more than 10 years experience doing business in Ghana, then I'll leave you my email address at the footnotes to the show, and you can, book your consultation with myself. All right, so we've got some interesting features coming up for the next few weeks. So latter part of September, we'll be looking about relationships in Ghana. We've had various very interesting debates about relationships in Ghana. So we'll be talking to you about why marriages are failing in Ghana at a rapid level. And also we'll be talking to you about should the man help a woman when they're married. Yep. So that's, that to come in September. Also in October, we'll be having diaspora conversations with some people from the diaspora who left the diaspora and have now returned to Ghana to settle and do business. In November, we've got a special looking forward to the election in December. So we'll be telling you about that. And also we'll be, probably coming in by the end of, November, some business opportunities they can tap into in Ghana. And also first couple weeks in December, we'll be looking about tourism in Africa, because we want to help, boost tourism in Africa. Africa is a massive continent. We also say and do, but oftentimes, particularly in the West, when you want to book your holiday for Christmas, or you want to get away for January, skip the cold, they don't tell you about Africa. So we would tell you about some places in Africa to go to during the Christmas and New Year period. So that's coming up in Ghana / Africa in Focus over the next couple of months or so. Let's get into today's podcast, looking about why Kwame Nkrumah never died. So Kwame Nkrumah was born in Nkroful, a small town in the western region of Ghana, then called Gold Coast, on September 21st, 1909. And so, he studied in Ghana. In actual fact, he wanted to become a Catholic priest and was wanting to study going to the priesthood. However, during his studies in Ghana, he met a Nigerian man called Nnamdi Azikiwe, and Nkrumah, he introduced Nkrumah to the ideas of Pan-Africanism. And a lot of people actually don't know that. A lot of people thought that Kwame Nkrumah had his actual Pan-African teaching in the US. No. This great Yoruba man, I think it was Yoruba, maybe Igbo, but definitely Yoruba or Igbo, Nnamdi Azikiwe, that chance meeting with, Nnamdi Azikiwe, you could say changing Nkrumah's life forever, because Nkrumah, because of the influence of Nnamdi Azikiwe, then became to involve himself in Pan-Africanism. So when he won the scholarship to go to study at Lincoln University in the US, that deepened Nkrumah's thirst for the ideology and the nuances of Pan-Africanism. And it is there in the US where he saw firsthand the anti-Black racism that many Africans in America are facing. B, that he met great illuminators of Pan-Africanism, the likes of Theodore James, the likes of Eric Williams, who later became Prime Minister of a newly independent Trinidad and Tobago. He met George Padmore and many other luminaries of Pan-Africanism. It was also while in the US that Nkrumah also began to read books by many Pan-African activists, prominent of which was the Right Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey. And Nkrumah often stated that of all the books that he read during his sojourn in America, no other book fired him up than the philosophy and opinions of Marcus Mosiah Garvey. And I'll urge you all, listeners, to get a copy of that book and try and read it for yourself to see why Nkrumah was highly influenced by the teachings in that great book called The Philosophy and Opinions of Marcus Garvey. And so Nkrumah, became really, really armed, with the whole sort of knowledge and the ideology of what Pan-Africanism is all about. So much so that, during his stay in America, he began to be involved also in community politics or local politics. And when he left, America, he then went to the UK in the sort of early 1940s. This is just before the end of the Second European Tribal War, so-called World War II. So when Nkrumah was in London, he was very, very politically active to the extent that he was, I think General Secretary of one of the African unions there, and he was also General Secretary of the Pan-African Congress, who were very, very instrumental in setting up what was a milestone in contemporary African politics when they organized, when Nkrumah helped to organize the Pan-African Congress of 1945. And that Congress basically became a clarion call to decolonize Africa of white supremacy or white terrorism or white domination. And so this podcast essentially is about why Nkrumah never dies. So I've just given you a bit of background as to the man, where he was born, what he did before he came to America, what he did when he was in America, and what he did when he left America to obviously used that ammunition from that Pan-African Congress in Manchester in 1945 to come to Ghana to help in the struggle for Ghana's independence. And that struggle for Ghana's independence was like a model, like a template that would be replicated across the African continent. But I'll come to that in a minute. But like I say, essentially, this podcast is why Nkrumah never dies. And the reason for that is because there are people in Ghana, particularly those who are aligned to the current president, Nana Addo Akufo-Addo, and the Chebi Mafia. Various people want to, rubbish the achievements of Kwame Nkrumah and state for even one kind of crazy assertion that Kwame Nkrumah was not the founder of Ghana. Yeah. So let's deal with that before we go deep into this. So the idea, and he puts it Akufo-Addo, president of Ghana, puts it that not one man founded the country, which is true, because Nkrumah alone, Nkrumah himself was not the only one who was involved in the struggle for the liberation of Ghana. However, he became the figurehead of the independent struggle for Ghana, particularly when he formed the CPP in Sopo in 1949. Because of disagreements he had with the United Gold Coast Convention, the UGCC, who actually invited Nkrumah to Ghana to help them, in the struggle for emancipation, because those founders of the United Gold Coast Convention, which is today's NPP, the government body in Ghana, they at the time were very bourgeoisie, you could say bourgeoisie Negroes, educated lawyers who were not able to reach the masses. And so when these luminaries like Pa Grant, who actually funded, he was a timber merchant in Ghana, and became a very wealthy man, he used his money to actually conceive and finance the United Gold Coast Convention. So Pa Grant, J.B. Dankwa, Akweje, Edward Akufo-Addo, Obechibi Lamti, and there's one other elder. Those were prominent members of the United Gold Coast Convention. They saw what Nkrumah did, particularly in the UK, in London. And they invited Nkrumah because he had those organizational skills and the ability to capture an audience because of the huge charisma that Nkrumah had. Nkrumah was a very charismatic man, something that they lacked. And so they invited Nkrumah to come to Ghana in 1948 to help with the struggle to liberate Ghana from British white domination. And so there are some within that, tradition who are now in government today. The Chebi wing of the new Patriotic Party, NPP, to say that Nkrumah was not the founder, of Ghana. That's not to say that, Nelson Mandela, it wasn't Nelson Mandela alone that gave freedom for South Africa, but Nelson Mandela became the figurehead of the liberation struggle in South Africa. Yeah. Martin Luther King was not the first one to, call for freedom for Africans in America. There were other people before King, but King became the figurehead of the civil rights struggle for equality, justice, and freedom for African Americans. Again, you look at somebody like India, Gandhi. Gandhi was not, the people before Gandhi who were part of the struggle for India, becoming independent from British colonial rule. But Gandhi became the figurehead of the struggle for Indian independence from British colonial rule. And so Nkrumah, yeah, we all know Nkrumah was not, because you can go back as far as even the bond of 1844, where, the Akans, particularly the Asantes, fought the British in the 100-Year War, yeah? And that bond of 1844, you could say, was the start of the liberation struggle in Ghana. But how far do you want to go? But my point is, Nkrumah, whether you like it or not, whether you accept it or not, whether you believe it or not, but the actual truth is that Nkrumah, he became the figurehead for Ghana's liberation. Yeah? And so it's very, very important that we underscore and emphasize that need, because, like I said, there are others, yeah, particularly the Chebi Mafia in the current government, who want to rewrite Ghana's history to suit their own parochial political agenda. And so it's very key that people who are not necessarily Ghanaian understand that Kwame Nkrumah is the founder of Ghana. Yeah. And so why Nkrumah never dies is because the ideology that Nkrumah had, not just for Ghana, but the whole African continent, is very alive today, is even more important today than it was, in the early 50s or the late 40s, early 50s, when Kwame Nkrumah was fighting for Ghana's liberation as well as Africa's liberation. And I'll come into Africa's liberation and why Kwame Nkrumah played the pivotal role in that in a minute. But, Nkrumah's ideology, right, of Nkrumahism, and Nkrumahism, you could say, is an offshoot of Marcus Garveyism, and also Pan-Africanism. Yeah, with Nkrumah's blueprint or blackprint on it. And so what Nkrumah stood for was that the black man, the African, has a right to manage his own affairs free of colonial influence. The black man, given a chance, is more than capable of managing his own affairs. The black man, the black woman must be custodians of their own destiny. The black woman, the black man must self-determine their own destiny. Yeah? And within that, you get the trickle-down effect of, like, doing for self, having your own system of independence, having your own system of education, having your own system of cooperative working together, so-called economics, having your own system of healthcare, etc., etc. Yeah. So this is what Kwame Nkrumah stood for, and this is the model and template of which Nkrumahism is built. Yeah. And when we look at the things that Nkrumah did for Ghana, and there are many, many things that Nkrumah did for Ghana. If I mention all of what he did for Ghana, we'll be here to, next year. But for the benefit of those listeners who want a detailed description of what Kwame Nkrumah did for Ghana, because I'll go into some in a minute, I did The Legacy of Kwame Nkrumah, Volume 1, Volume 2, that you can get in the archive of Ghana African Focus. That goes into deeper what Kwame Nkrumah actually did for Ghana and for the African continent as well. But for those listeners who may be new to the podcast, yeah, let me give you, a flavor of what, Kwame Nkrumah did for Ghana, because there are many people today, even today in Ghana, who believe that Kwame Nkrumah didn't do anything for Ghana. Despite all the evidence to the contrary, there are some people in Ghana who of the opinion that Kwame Nkrumah did not do anything for Ghana. So this is why it's important as a journalist, as a historian, to set the record straight and make people aware, make people understand, understand what Kwame Nkrumah did for Ghana. So I'm going to mention a few things, what he did for Ghana that are still in Ghana today. So for example, the Accra Tema motorway, yeah, to connect the port city of Tema with Accra, the capital, and also other parts of the country. That motorway was built in 1961, 2 years before Britain built the M1. That's how far advanced Kwame Nkrumah was, building a motorway in an African country. Yeah? And by the way, that motorway is still there, even though it's had some very, very bad works done to it, some very, very bad potholes and that kind of thing, right? The original part of that original design is still there, more than 60 years after it was first built by Nkrumah, using Ghanaian engineers. So the Accra motorway was not built by no Europeans, no Indians, no Chinese. This is built by Ghanaian engineers. Yeah. Again, Kwame Nkrumah built the University of Science and Technology in Kumasi, a fantastic edifice, yeah, which had as its core science and technology, because Nkrumah understood the importance of science and technology to the development of a newly independent country. Again, Kwame Nkrumah built the Tema municipality. Tema was a bush, yeah? And also, while we're on Tema, do you know that Tema is in the Bible? What is called the Bible? Tema is in the Bible. You can Google it and look for yourself. But Nkrumah built a city from scratch. Tema was bush, and he built a modern city from scratch with first-class road, underground drainage system, electricity supply, and also Tema became key for two things. He made it an industrial area at the heart of Ghana's industrialization program. So many factories and enterprises were built in Tema. And secondly, one of the biggest ports in West Africa, the Tema Harbor, Tema Port, was built by Nkrumah in Tema. Yeah. Again, Kwame Nkrumah was thinking 50 years forward. We know now today people talk about renewable energy, but Kwame Nkrumah was talking about renewable energy more than 60 years ago. That's why he built the Kwabenya atomic energy reactor. Yeah, because that atomic energy reactor's purpose was to elicit atomic energy, yeah, to feed Ghana with renewable energy aside from the Nkroful Dam, and I'll come to that also in a minute. So Kwame Nkrumah built an atomic energy reactor so that Ghana could harness energy from the atomic atoms and protons and neutrons that came from atomic energy. Nkrumah also built the innovative and groundbreaking Nkroful Dam in 1964 to supply not just Ghana, but the whole West Africa with cheap electricity. Again, Kwame Nkrumah built Ghana Airways. I think was the second airline after Ethiopian Airlines to operate anywhere in Africa. Ghana Airways, Kwame Nkrumah. Yeah. Kwame Nkrumah also established the Ghana Broadcasting Company to bring about a cultural revolution, a cultural change in the mindset of Ghanaians. And so the whole purpose of GBC was to Africanize and Ghanaianize the mind of the Ghanaian. So, he had things like art program, cultural programs in the traditional, in the indigenous languages, radio programs, current affairs programs, etc., to engender the spirit of Ghanaianism and Pan-Africanism in the population. Kwame Nkrumah also built more than 500 factories in Ghana alone. Yeah, that met the need, that met every need of the Ghanaian. So just to mention some of his industries, he built a pharmaceutical wing called GIHOC. I think it was Ghana Industrial Holdings Company, GIHOC. So GIHOC had a pharmaceutical wing. So rather than Ghana importing medicine like it does today, Ghana would make its own medicine for its own condition. Yeah. And as you saw with COVID, how it is important that you have health security, i.e., you're in the position to actually, create your own medicines rather than be at the whim of others to bring you their medicine, which is often poison. And so Nkrumah understood that a healthy people will make a healthy nation, which is why he created the GIHOC pharmaceutical wing to, make our own medicines. Again, Nkrumah built the rubber tire factory in Bonsa in the Western region. So rather than importing tires, as we do now in Ghana, Kwame Nkrumah had the foresight that we need to make our own tires for our own condition, for our own climatical conditions. And so he set up about building the Bonsa tire factory as well. Again, Kwame Nkrumah understood the need of education. So Kwame Nkrumah set up more than 100 schools, vocational and technical colleges across Ghana. He understood that teachers would need to teach in those colleges. So he set up the teaching vocational college at Winneba in the Central region. Yeah, to teach the teachers of the future. And lastly, because I can go on about this all day, Kwame Nkrumah also set up the Bank of Ghana. Yeah, as part of its, economical strategy. So why I'm saying this is that many people, even Ghanaians who are born in Ghana, and Ghanaians today, around today, they don't know of the true legacy and what Kwame Nkrumah did for Ghana. So what I've just touched upon is like a tip of the iceberg of what Kwame Nkrumah actually did for Ghana. And like I say, if you want to know a bit more deeper as to what Kwame Nkrumah did for Ghana and Africa, yeah, then you can check out The Legacy of Kwame Nkrumah, Volume 1 and Volume 2 in the Ghana African Focus Archive. Now, again, so this is what Kwame Nkrumah did for Ghana. And a lot of what he did is still there today in Ghana. Like the Accra motorway, like some of those factories that he built, like the in some cannery is still there. The Tema community is still there. Tema Port is still there. A lot of the roads that he did is still there. The University of Science and Technology in Kumasi is still there. And many, many other initiatives and enterprises that he built are still there. That Ghanaians take for granted, but not knowing that those enterprises were actually done by Kwame Nkrumah. And before I go on to what he did for Africa, even some of their estates, particularly in Accra, where people live today, right? Those estates, like cantonments, the extension of cantonments, Laboni, Kanda, airport residential area, and there's one more that he did in Accra. All those estates in Accra were actually built by Kwame Nkrumah. Yeah, aside from the Tema municipal community that he did also. So Nkrumah did a lot for Ghana. Now, what he did for Africa is also very, very groundbreaking as well. So the model on which he was using to build Ghana was going to be the model for many African countries. In actual fact, in 1958, at the first All Africa People's Conference in Accra, he invited people like Patrice Lumumba, Nelson Mandela, Jomo Kenyatta, Amir Cabral, and other African freedom fighters, yeah, and gave them like a two-book handbook in which they could use for their fight against white domination, white terrorism in their respective countries. Again, the drive that Nkrumah had because of his understanding and understanding of the ideology of Pan-Africanism, the drive that he had enabled others like Lumumba, like Sekou Touré, like Amir Cabral, like Jomo Kenyatta, like, and even later on, Robert Mugabe, to attain political independence for their respective countries. Nkrumah was also very instrumental in the formation of the Organization for African Unity, today so-called African Union. Yeah? Nkrumah was a very, very instrumental person in the formation of that body. Yeah? Nkrumah also, long before Gaddafi. So people talk about Gaddafi, well, champion Africa, this, that, and the other. But Kwame Nkrumah talked about African Central Bank, one African army, one African currency, one African trading bloc, etc. Long before Gaddafi. Yeah, this was even when Gaddafi was like in his shorts. Yeah, and Nkrumah was talking about all this, having the African single bank, having the African single currency, having one African army. Yeah, having one single trading bloc. This is all in Nkrumah's templates that now you could say have come to fruition, apart from the central bank in the Euro term, and also the African army. But this is what Nkrumah envisaged. And so, without Kwame Nkrumah, there wouldn't be a struggle on the African continent. And so the likes of Patrice Lumumba, the likes of Amir Cabral, the likes of Sekou Touré, the likes of Nelson Mandela, the likes of Julius Nyerere, etc., those people who led their country to freedom, if it wasn't for Nkrumah, they would not be the case. And so we see how Nkrumah never dies because of the legacy that is given to both Ghana and Africa. And it's very, very important that people understand this legacy that Nkrumah has for Ghana and Africa. Yeah? And so today, what we see in Burkina Faso with likes of Ibrahim Traoré, we see in Niger, we see in Senegal, we see in Mali, and we see in Guinea-Bissau. That is a reawakening of the spirit of Nkrumahism. Because what those 5 countries are doing is A, fighting against European domination, B, taking the destiny into their own hands, and more importantly, showing to the world that the African is capable of minding their own affairs. Yeah, so what I see, in those 5 countries, particularly the leadership of Ibrahim Traoré in Burkina Faso, is Nkrumah never dies. The spirit of Nkrumah is living in those countries. And we see in Ghana now, even Ghana, which, the home, particularly in Nkrumah's time, of Pan-Africanism, but has since lost that fervor and desire. Within Ghana now, there's a reawakening and realization that this so-called multi-party democracy, this Western type democracy that we've imbibed on, has not worked. And that, new forces are beginning to emerge in Ghana, which, are hoping to challenge the 2 big parties in Ghana, namely the NPP and the NDC. And so we see former NPP member Alan Chemating and his Butterfly Movement for Change. We also see Chadaman, Nana Kwame Bediakon and his movement, his Ghana Force movement, and we also see others, like Kofi Cranton and others who are leading the dialogue for change, all based on Nkrumahism, all based on this issue or this assertion that Nkrumah never dies. So Nkrumah may have gone a long, long time ago, but his vision for Ghana, his vision for Africa, is, like I said, more relevant today than what it was when Kwame Nkrumah, started his drive for liberation of Ghana and Africa in the late 40s and 50s. And so, on this Kwame Nkrumah Memorial Day, it is very, very important that we appreciate and understand that Kwame Nkrumah is with us in spirit. He may not be there in the flesh, but his spirit lives on, and definitely his ideology lives on. And Nkrumah never dies. So we say Nkrumah never dies, and we see the re-emergence of the spirit of Nkrumah in those African countries I mentioned, and we see a new type of leadership emerging in Ghana, which wants to, use Nkrumah as model, as its template for wanting to change Ghana for the better. And so, this is why we say in Ghana, Nkrumah never dies. The man may have died a long time ago, but his spirit, and more importantly, the ideology of Kwame Nkrumah, is alive with us today. And so, I hope that you enjoy Kwame Nkrumah Memorial Day. And if you are in Ghana, please go to the Kwame Nkrumah Mausoleum. It's a fantastic edifice, and you will learn a lot and find out about more about the man, the ideology, and also what his legacy is for Ghana and Africa. And so I thank you for listening to this special edition of Ghana in Focus with myself, Kwame, Why Nkrumah Never Dies. If you like what you hear, again, please share to your friends, family, social media networks. Please subscribe to Ghana Africa in Focus on YouTube and on Spotify. And if you'd like to donate to the show to help us continue to make fantastic content from Ghana, from Africa, you can donate as little as $3 a month to help us with our costs, and also our, wanting to, bring you that great content for you. And so, for myself, Kwame, and from the crew here on Ghana in Focus, thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you in the next edition of Ghana Africa in Focus.